Hey, Jefi, so good to see you.
You too, Mr. Vacationer, house seller, property under contractor.
All of the abover, yes. Getting ready to go on vacationer.
Yes.
So, yes.
Big bike trip, exciting.
Big bike trip rolling up here. Pretty, see what I did there? Rolling up. But yeah, that's coming up, and we leave next week. So, and hey, everybody, we're thinking I'm going to try and do an episode from the road before we go into bear country. So, hopefully it won't be my last.
I hope not either. This podcast would be really boring without you.
I know. Well, I don't know about that. But hey, we do have a 10-minute takedown, so we better start taking it down. This is living in the now. Mm-hmm. And this is a really important one, I think, for where we are in our market and what's going on and just being realtors.
Yeah.
And for our clients too. So go ahead. This is kind of your baby here, so roll with it and we'll go from there.
So this has kind of been a reoccurring theme for me because I have a lot of friends in this industry, not only lending friends, but title and escrow friends, people over the last, 22, 23 years that I've shared a lot of time with in this job. And the recurring theme that I'm hearing is all of this angst about what is happening next. And through, my meditation, through yoga, through just, kind of my journaling, I have these repeated themes that I'm being taught about living in the now. And I thought, okay, this is kind of cool. So for example, Darla, one of my closest friends who's in title. Hi, Dar.
Hey, Darla.
She had an office meeting, and she said that all that they talked about in the office meeting is, the sky is falling and people are leaving, and you're probably going to have to take over other people's territories, and you're going to need to do this. And, she said she left there and she felt like she'd been run over by a Mack truck. And I'm thinking, okay, well, there's a lot of lessons to be learned in there, but that can be for another day. The other thing is 2011, September 11th, 2011, I stopped being a news watcher, which, it has its pros and cons, but I do a lot of snippet news. So if there's something I want to dig into, I dig into it. If it's just, a interviewer interviewing an interviewer, I'm not into that. I'm not into your opinion about things. I want to know the facts about them. That's not true. I do like opinions, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. So you don't want to go down the rabbit hole of all that.
Right. Yeah. And I think that what happens is that we're all in this really precious moment in our lives and time and our jobs, where if we focus on what we can do, which is this exact minute, you can't change what you did yesterday. You don't have full control over tomorrow, but you have complete control over exactly this moment. And that's what I would like this podcast to be about.
I think this is a great topic, and maybe to chime in there a little bit. So, this year I had probably one of my slowest first quarters that I've had in a long time.
Yep.
Coming off of a year where I had a monster first quarter. So the juxtaposition of those two quarters was tremendous.
Yeah.
And it was tough. I'll just be straight up honest.
Sure.
It was just difficult because you're like, okay, this is a little different this time, or I've had seasons like this before, and you just have to stay close and do the basics and focus on the moment. Remember, I did the preview challenge because I had time. I'm adding things. So you have to kind of, I think it's a very relevant topic for a lot of agents right now. So
exactly.
You want to zoom in a bit?
So the reason this matters to me is that, and actually before we zoom in, this reason it matters to me is because if we live in a place of fear of what we can't control, then we don't stay focused on what we can. And that brought me to the things I really wanted to share today. And the number one is activities. The things that you do every day are a controllable thing. You can wake up in the morning, you can do those activities. So we talk about this all the time. Of course, Buffini talks about this every time, but it's calls, notes, and pop buys. Make it your own. Do whatever. It's how hard is it to pick up the phone and call somebody and ask them how they're doing? See what's going on. How's their business being affected? How are their kids? Summers right now. Kids are out of school. Did they just graduate? Are they going off to university? These are all huge life changes. And your most favorite people in your database want to hear from you, and they want to know what's going on. Another thing is events. We talk about events a lot, and you and I kind of, Shred with Ed is probably an event that is a manageable financial event, right? I mean, it's not $500 per person.
No, it's going to be $1,000 event.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I think people get caught up in the I can't afford it phase. I'm selling less and my paychecks are smaller. I don't have a lot going on, and so I'm not going to do anything. Well, that's not good. So this morning I was walking Ollie and I ran into a client of mine while I'm walking, and we ended up having a great chat, and he introduced me to his neighbor, and we, it's why not have a dog walking event? Meet everybody for coffee first and then go for a walk with your dogs or whatever. Just don't let those things stop you from being around your clients. Yeah. Do you have something on that?
Well, no, I was going to say just that there's, we tend to focus on our bigger things and the ones that have bigger budgets, but a really successful one over the years has been just doing a pop-up coffee or a pop-up happy hour, and you throw it out at the last minute, and whoever shows up, and they appreciate the invite. So
100%.
Just an easy thing to do.
Yeah. The next thing is knowledge about what is happening today is more powerful than what you think will happen tomorrow.
Ooh, I want you to slow down on that, because that's very Zen. I love it. So
I know.
Give that to me again. Slow that up, and I want to hear that again.
Knowledge about what is happening today is more powerful than what you think is going to happen tomorrow.
That is awesome. And I'll tell you what, as we get ready to go on this bike trip in a week, I'm going to be making sure I'm bringing that message home to our crew.
Okay, I love that. So, 2 years ago, you taught me how to track numbers. Well, a year ago, I started tracking my numbers, and you taught me how to do that. So this is a view into our past, right? Mm-hmm. And history does predict the future. That's common knowledge. You study history to know what's going to happen. But I don't want to guess what's going to happen. So I know right now we're in sales in my little micro market, we're down 23%. The average across the country is 30, which means that we are doing better than average.
Right. And that's units sold. That's not prices. That's units sold.
That's units sold. Correct. Sorry. But to understand that and have a conversation with people, and they always say, well, what's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen here? I say, okay, historically, if we look at history, these are the cycles that real estate goes through. This is the amount of time over in the history that we've stayed in a down market. This is the time in history that we stayed in this kind of situation. But to sit there and tell them some X, Y, and Z is going to happen is not only unfair to them, but it's not true. You don't know.
Yeah, that is so true. And I've had this conversation this week with a couple clients and wanting to know about the condition of the market and timing when they want to put their home on the market.
Right.
And I said, I can't tell you what the market's going to be like a year from now or at the end of the year. I can tell you right now it's a really good time to sell. In fact, I put my home on the market.
Right.
You're right. And
Powerful.
And they're going to do it. They're like, hey, let's go now. Because I know it's good now. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? And none of us do. The other point on that, I was looking back at interest rate predictions.
Yes.
And everybody was wrong.
They were wrong.
They were wrong.
I know.
And so nobody really knows. And I mean, you can look at some historic trends and do that, but the crystal ball gets a little fuzzy when you get more than 6 months out.
Yeah, this is true. So we have to deal in the now, which brings me to my last point, and that is, what can we do? What can you do today that will actually impact 12 to 24 months from now? So if you want to control your future as much as you can, doing the things today that will affect that, planting a tree. You think about that whole thing. A tree planted today is better than a tree planted tomorrow, right? Because it has another day to grow. But what relationships can you deepen? Go through and see. I mean, a lot of clients that we have are 12 to 24 months out in this type of a market. They're thinking about things. They're mulling it over. They're making a decision based on a lot more than just low interest rates. So what relationships can you work on?
Yeah. And this relates, with this move that we're undertaking, we're going from living literally about 7 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes from everybody and everything to a whopping like 15 to 20 minutes, right?
Wow.
But exactly. But it's making us, because we'll be a little bit more out in the country, it's like, oh, we need to be more intentional with scheduling time to see people and doing things and making that time. Because the reality of what happens is if everybody's real close by, you end up not seeing them because they're there and you're not being intentional on it. So it's kind of a wake up call on a personal note. It's like, oh, let's have our schedule of people we want to see and be intentional with that and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great idea. And I think it's wonderful. The other thing is what can you teach your clients and what can your clients teach you? So come into it in a perspective of maybe you have a business owner who is doing a shift in their business right now. Call them and say, hey, talk me through what you're doing. I see you're doing X. Why are you doing that? Teach me. Let me learn from you. Or maybe this is the time where you take a really good client or friend even out for lunch that might be fantastic at saving for their future or budgeting, or they are a landscaper and you want to learn how to cut costs on your garden and the water that you're using. I mean, get creative, think about things. But if we have lived in such a rapid market for so long that I think we've lost the art of the long-term relationship.
Yeah, unless you're real intentional on it. That's definitely true.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last one in that point would just be, what relationships can you build with other agents? I mean, you and I are huge on referral giving. I mean, I literally try to give a referral every single day.
That's awesome.
Right. Because I'm intentional on thinking about it. Like, who could I share this name with? Who can I do this with? I don't care if it's a tattoo artist or it's a financial planner. I know people in all those realms. So what can I do to share that information? And that's relationship building.
Yeah. No, that, definitely agree with that. And I think also on the agent level too, it's like building those relationships with agents. I know one of the things I did with bringing on our home was I thought, oh, who are my favorite agents that I would love to have come through and bring me a buyer? And I reached out to a bunch of agents and just said, hey, you're going to see this hit. Here's what's going on in my life. Would love it if you came through. And we just had a great conversation, and it was, and it made me realize like there's value in doing more of that. And one other point on that on the agent level is, in the office, don't be afraid to have some round tables and take a topic and learn what other people are doing, and don't be afraid to be vulnerable in that exercise. We did that recently at our office, and it was fantastic, and it's kind of changed some of my techniques on how to build buzz, which is going to be a future episode.
That's really cool. So let's wrap this up with what's next. We've talked a lot about living in the moment. Living in the moment does not mean you don't plan. You have to still plan for success. So what's going to happen for me in the coming months is I will sit down and have a very good plan of action for implementing these particular points.
Yeah, totally agree. And
awesome.
Can't wait to be doing that with you, Jefi. So very, very, very good about being in the now. I think it's super important, one that we always have to remind ourselves, because sometimes we can just get caught off into the future and then we're looking back and not doing what we need to do.
Exactly. Point taken.
Very good.
All right, everybody.
We'll see you later.
Bye for now.